Welcome to a Sugar Bowl edition of UGASports Live with the head coach Jim Donnan, College Football Hall of Famer, former Georgia head coach. He coached Kirby Smart. We're doing this from our UGASports Watch Along studio. And, Coach, in 2 nights, you and I will be sitting here watching Georgia versus Ole Miss Part 2. And we have a whole crew of UGASports staffers down there today for media obligations that players and coaches are going through. So let me just start with that, Coach, as we begin to look ahead to this game. And I hope you had a Merry Christmas. And
Definitely
the same for
had
all
a
of our
Merry
viewers.
Christmas and saw some good pics of you and your girls, so that was exciting. But I think this is a great time of the year for our team from the standpoint they've had a good prep, did a good job of recovery. We still have some injuries, but not as many that we've had over the year as far as just really guys coming back. So I think people say, how can you play a team twice in 1 year and all that? But I really believe from standpoint of, beat them twice. But I just think our players are very confident and they understand that what happened last year is what can't happen this year. You can't lose the game by that from the standpoint, all the bad things that happened in a Notre Dame game, give a team a chance to beat you because you have the things that happened to us. So really worked hard on the fundamentals and worked some of these new guys in to give them some more reps that you get for bowl practices. And also 9 new enrollees that graduated. We'll have some more in the January, but they were able to come and do some work with us too. So just a real good December for Georgia.
And let's start with the injury report that came out earlier this week. 2 notable names that are in the probable section that we have not seen for a while. And at least my assumption is that we would not see them again. So they've worked really hard to get to this. Probable are tight end Ethan Barbour, who we saw as getting in the rotation early in the season for Georgia. And then Colby Young, the wide receiver, who's been really working hard to rehab from his injury. Now, I don't know if they'll play, Coach, and maybe you know more than I do, but even if to get to this point, doesn't that have to lift up the team to see those guys work that hard?
Well, 2 points here. First of all, in Colby's situation, his last rattling out of the box, really. I mean, no chance to play anymore in his career except professional football. And he's such a team guy, and he was, regardless of how it happened last year, it was kind of a miscarriage of justice. I mean, he certainly deserves some discipline, but not to the extent that he had to miss the whole year like he did. And that was later rectified. But then he came back was having a really good year and then had the injury. But he's worked so hard for the rehab, and he shows the selfish part that most people would take and say, well, I'm just going to get ready for my pro combine and get ready. He wants to play for Georgia, and it's a little risk involved, but I don't think he would be out there if it was a major risk. But what he gives you, and we'll talk about Ethan, and again, he gives you a supreme presence on the X side of the field, the weak side of the field, a big target. And if you notice some of our plays during the course of the year, particularly third down possession plays where a guy's got to beat a guy on an out route or a comeback or just a muscle curl where you got to get away from press coverage. We don't have a real strength guy to do that, and also just his body carries all the target area that he has to throw to, and you add that to the red zone. I just think even if he plays 15 or 20 plays, that'll be significant. And then Ethan Barbour, just a really talented young athlete that won't lose any eligibility. But the fact that he was able to break the lineup and even get in the game early on, a lot like Williams, Elias was doing in fall camp, you had 2 really major factors of tight ends that already was pretty good situation. So where he'll help is he can give somebody a break on special teams, maybe athletically. And maybe there'll be a couple plays where they put him in to maybe be a decoy or maybe be somebody that you're not looking for when Lucky and Delp's in there and hit him, kind of like Riddell is. So just a real big plus for Georgia to have both these guys.
We are brought to you by Athens Ford and Darden's Delights and Atlanta Dental Implants. We'll tell you about them throughout the show. Coach, when the team is now 2 days away from kickoff, 2.5 days. By this time in 2 days, they will be in game mode with that they're used to. The schedule this time of year is very much different than the regimented schedule, and I know they try to recreate that. But today, tomorrow, what do coaches try to do to get this team ready? Because last year, that routine that they enjoy was completely disrupted by things outside of their control.
Yeah, I mean, when you had there were several things down there, the tragedy in the Bourbon Street area, and then of course Kirby's father's accident, and then subsequent death. Really disheartening situation for everybody. But I think the thing that Kirby tries to do is manufacture the week like if we could just pretend like Thursday is a Saturday. So in our team's mind, today is a Thursday practice. From that standpoint, tomorrow will be a Friday, what they call a subscript, where they just go over to the dome and walk through situational type things like how to line up on an onside kick, what to do after a safety. If we're going for 2 in overtime, like we had to do against Tech, these are our play. Just 30 or 40, just respond to the substitution type deal. But today is like the Hayes in the barn day. They'll do a really good walkthrough on special teams, and then they'll go out and do work on their goal line stuff, their coming out stuff on offense, third down. Defense will do the same thing. And then at the end, they'll just do a couple mock situations. Then I think they have a media obligation today where Roddy and our teams over there get a chance to interview all the players. And it's good for the kids to get out there and some of the ones that aren't in the limelight to talk to the press. And then
and that particular one, you'll hear a lot of reporters really rave about that session because it's a big open room. You can go to pretty much anyone you want to, and that doesn't happen but once a year, and that is at the bowl games.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby's got a tight rein on these guys, and I like that. But you're involved in a playoff situation where the media criteria is set up by the playoffs. I mean, just like earlier in the week, they had an open session for Georgia that the media could watch practice, which would never happen if we were playing in a bowl game.
And even beyond that, record video of practice,
right,
which is even more infrequent.
That's just a no around here, and that's just the way he does things. Which it's okay with me. But anyhow, and Ole Miss probably on the same kind of plan because Pete Golding coached with Coach Bryant, Coach Saban, and I think that's just the way their blueprint for approaching the game will be, and it's going to be exciting to see these two teams match up against and see what they do differently to try to stop each other and attack each other, and also just how these kids react, knowing that you've kind of, like I told somebody the other day, you've already taken a final exam against these guys and you made a great grade on it, but now the teacher said you can make a perfect grade. I'm going to let you take it again, or you can lessen your grade by taking it again. So we're either going to either do better or worse, so we'll have to see.
We mentioned the injury situation for Georgia, notably for Ole Miss. Keywan Lacey, the great running back, one of the best in the country. We saw him against Tulane have an injury to his shoulder, and he told reporters that was the AC joint in the shoulder, but he said he's good to go. I have to imagine Georgia will do its best to test that to see if he's really good to go.
Yeah, it's one thing to be a running back and have something wrong with your lower body because, you can't, when you've got an injury to your ankle, knee, hamstring and all that, you just don't have the push off. But you can get by with a upper appendage situation. They can pad it up. He'll have to play through some pain, but you're not near as effective catching the ball or protecting on pass protection because of the hits there and because of the angles you have to use to catch the ball. But he's just a tremendous back, and I'm sure he might be altered a little bit, but not to the point that, the fact that he can go pretty much says that he's just going to have to play through some pain. And we're going to have to be aware of that because, he did score 2 touchdowns against us, but we did a pretty good job of limiting him. But the thing about us, we've improved at stopping the run, but we've really improved stopping the pass. So it's going to be, we didn't have to worry much about the run against Alabama. So now we're going to have to play the run and the pass. And you heard me talk all year. We're not real good on first and second down when a team runs those RPOs, and nobody is if they're effective. But hopefully, our own Brent Rollins came out with a stat about how many times he threw the ball over 10 yards, and he only completed 2 of them. Hopefully, he doesn't complete any of those deep balls, but he was magnificent on the other ones.
Yeah, here's that stat. So in the first game with Georgia and OIe Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, and these are on throws beyond 10 yards, 2 of 11 for 56 yards. Gunnar Stockton was 8 of 10 for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I love that stat because I think if you watch the game, you don't feel that way because of how explosive Ole Miss was.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that you've got that, and that's why I like having you on here. You got, beside the many things, you come up with that. But the point is, they're talking about there's no way Trinidad can play like he did the first game. Well, if he throws the ball deeper better, he can play better. And as far as Gunnar, 12 out of 12 in the second half, I mean, hard to beat that in a Walmart parking lot. You know what I'm saying? And now you're going to be in a Superdome. So he had a tremendous game. We counted for 5 touchdowns. And but, he really was rolling there. And then we played that little catfish game, nothing against Charlotte. But, we didn't really do much against Charlotte. And then Tech, we were kind of in a fetal position the whole game. Really didn't do a whole lot because we lost our center and all that. But, boy, he came back with a big-time game. And we usually more running than we have all year against Alabama. I think counting the kneel downs and all, it's like 14 times. I look for us to move the pocket a little more throughout the prospect of the next, hopefully, 3 games to kind of focus on his ability to pressure the defense and not be in the pocket quite as much, and maybe use a little more misdirection in our running game, because that really effectively, those are the kind of runners we got with Chauncey Bowens and Frazier and those guys. So maybe we'll do that. That's what I would do.
I want to talk to you more about quarterbacks because I pulled some stats from Georgia's previous 5 losses, which you have to go back a couple years for that. But first, I do want to pause for a word from our friends at Atlanta Dental Implants.
Prior to having the dental implants, I was in pain and there were like loose teeth, and it's kind of a little bit of a complex talking or smiling. Having periodontal disease and trying to find a good place like this place to get it done is very difficult. I'm looking at the website and I'm like, wow, they've got their prices like right there. Top arch replacement, bottom arch replacement, whatever you need. Highly recommend it. ATL Dental Implants. I'm learning to smile again, let's just say.
Atlanta Dental Implants. Take care of your teeth and take care of your feet. That's what I've always heard. And so that's how you do it. And you don't want to have teeth issues headed into 2026. So chat with them and get that taken care of early. All right, Coach. I looked at Georgia's last 5 losses, and you have to go back to 2023 to get to that. So we've got Alabama this year, Notre Dame last year, Ole Miss, and then Bama in 24 and then 23. Average quarterback stats for Georgia. Here's the average stat line in those losses. So we've got 2 of these are Gunnar Stockton, and the rest are Carson Beck. 20 of 32 for 246 yards passing, 1 touchdown. It averages out to just under 1 interception, 7 carries for negative yards, and then barely a rushing touchdown, usually not. Gunnar Stockton's average stat line this year, 20 of 30, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, less than half an interception. But the biggest thing with him is he's the running threat. He averages about 40 yards a game and a rushing touchdown every other game. And to me, that's the element that Georgia has not had in these games, is how do you get those easy yards with a mobile quarterback? I think this game, as much as we talk about Trinidad Chambliss, I think it comes down to, can he perform on the ground and in the air anywhere remotely close to what he did the first time, because it was probably his best game of the season.
You make some really good points there. And I think the thing that we've talked to our fans about and supporters of this program all year is, what he adds to our offense from a standpoint of eliminating the negative play. So you see time after time where you get pressure on him and he jumps around and he makes 2 or 3 yards instead of being 2nd and 14, it's 2nd and 6, or instead of being 3rd and 12, it's 3rd and 5. And sometimes on 3rd down, he makes a 1st down. And 1st down passes particularly are just a nemesis for any team. If you call a shot play where you're going to fake the ball and throw deep and then you get a 7 or 8 yard loss, hard to make a 1st down there. But if you call that shot play and then you can't get rid of it and because they covered it and then you run for 2 or 3 yards, then you still have a chance to make a 1st down and keep the stats, the sticks moving. We played a game at North Carolina back in 1974 against University of Pittsburgh. We didn't punt the whole game, and they had Tony Dorsett, so it's a good thing we didn't. But we ended up winning, I think 49-47 or 45. It was just an offensive shootout, kind of like this. So you're going to see some teams in this situation. Both teams may be going for it on 4th down. Use your imagination how many times we might do it, but I know Pete Golding will probably do it. But the fact we didn't punt the first game is pretty salient point in the fact that we were able to, score every time we had the ball. And that's just tremendous on the offensive standpoint. And we're lacking a little bit without Drew Bobo in there, but I do feel like our offensive line has a lot of continuity. And the fact that Tolliver was able to play that game and get some confidence from his own self that he can do it in a big time atmosphere. So, and they don't play quite as much what we call mint or nose guard type. There won't be somebody on his nose as much as that big guy from Alabama. So he'll be able to maybe be even more effective against this Ole Miss defense. And you got to think Ole Miss is going to sell the ranch here in this game. I mean, they couldn't stop us with what they tried last time. I think they'll try to confuse Gunner, use a lot of different pressures, and just look at, hey, let's win this series. You know what I mean? If we can win this series and get them off the field, and that's the way they're going to approach it. So, but that's why we're going to watch the game on Thursday night and hope all of y'all will watch it with us.
I also pulled the stat lines for the quarterbacks in the games in Georgia's last 5 losses, the opposing quarterbacks. So this is Ty Simpson this year, Riley Leonard, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe. The average stat line that has beaten Georgia the last 5 times, 19 of 29, so not crazy accurate, 239 yards, so not crazy explosive in the air. But the big thing here, 11 carries for 58 yards and then a touchdown rushing. Georgia with a mobile quarterback on the other side is not as good. And I mean, I think that's the case with any defense. That's not unique to Georgia. The thing about Trinidad Chambliss, his average stat line this year, 22 of 33 for 300 yards, 11 carries for 46 yards. He being mobile as a threat and combined with Kejuan Lacey the way that they do it, that's going to be the thing that can hurt Georgia the most.
Yeah, without question in my mind, and just not taking anything away, Milroe's a tremendous athlete for sure, but the combo that Trinidad presents, runner and passer, is really a challenge. And I think when you look at the way Simpson was able to scramble in the first game and make yards, and just unbelievable percentage on 3rd down. And comparatively speaking, though, as much as we want to talk about our offense, I think our defense has made quantum improvement from the first game. We're so much better rushing the passer. We have a lot more confidence in our pressure package. We've got some people in the secondary that have really gotten a lot better, i.e. Ellis Robinson, DeMello Jones. The addition of Dinkins in the secondary has just kind of, even though Aguero is a good player, he's not the man coverage guy that Dinkins is. And I just think, the way that these guys have understood that, hey, we're not the Georgia defense from the past as far as a bunch of stars, but we are a collective unit, and we can kind of augment each other and make it happen. But the bottom line, the old coach, our kicking game, I just watched it against Oklahoma the other night, how much the kicking game destroyed that game. The punter dropping the punt, the best field goal kicker supposedly in the SEC, although I think our guy's better. missed 2 field goals. They had a bad penalty on a punt return, and just all the things that got to happen for you good in a game like that happened bad for OU. Go back to our game. We blocked the kick. We did a great job covering kicks, net punting, had a 22-yard punt return. Those are things that I just feel like that we stress so much that are going to help us win the national championship. And I'm not saying we're going to win it for sure, go out on a limb and say that, but I think that addition gives us an edge on anybody we play.
Well, look at how the Rams got back in the game with the Falcons last night. Blocked kick, return for a touchdown, special team score, you win. And then the Falcons had to come back down and kick the field goal at the end. So if you're not good in the kicking game, you don't win football games.
Yeah, I thought about Coach fired his special teams guy after the Seattle game, and then they get in this game and block a field goal for a touchdown. So I'm sure that they feel like they made the right move there.
Question from Foster Moss. Is Kyron Jones good to go? He was not listed on the injury report.
I think that's kind of a situation where it hadn't been a lot of information coming out of him. I think they made a move early in the year that he had either some kind of minor surgery or something on his hand, and I just don't know if they count him as part of being on the team, that they would have to list him as being available or not. He certainly hasn't played since then. It would be a big plus if we could have him, particularly from a depth perspective there in the secondary. But I wish I could answer that. I'll try to figure it out between now and we can ask Roddy to check when he's down there today. You can ask him. But I think he's probably not somebody you would have to list. Maybe you have to list even if they're out. But he's definitely would be a good plus for us to have.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dinkins as well, who's been coming on. That would give Georgia a lot of options in depth, especially if Kyron were to be available. He wouldn't have to play as many reps as maybe he has early in the season. If you have more questions for Coach Donnan, leave them in the chat. We'll wrap the show with that here in about 10 minutes or so. I do want to pause and thank our longtime sponsors of UGA Sports Live and our UGA Sports Watch Along show, and that's Athens Ford. We are at the end of the year. It is 2025, but in 2 days it will be 2026, and that means the 2026 vehicles are coming to the lot at Athens Ford, and this may be your chance to get a really good deal on a 2025, maybe that Ford Bronco Outer Banks and Badlands, up to $9,000 off MSRP or $8,000 off the 2025 Ford Explorer. To me, if you want to get a good vehicle and from people that you know are going to treat you right, you go out to Athens Ford and get it serviced there too. The 2025 Ford F-150 Lariat, up to $14,000 off of that MSRP and 0% APR for 60 months. Even if you're not ready to buy right now, go chat with them and just see what maybe your best plans are heading into the new year. They will shoot you straight over at Athens Ford on the west side of Athens. The thing that I had been wondering, Coach, because everyone's been saying Ole Miss can't be the same team without Lane Kiffin. It's the same offensive play callers. My main thing is that when you get to head coach decisions, go for it here, don't go for it here, pace of play, all of those things. Now you have a defensive-minded head coach in Pete Golding. To me, that would feel like where that could be the most different part of Ole Miss, in those big decisions that one person has to make. Do you lean what helps your defense or what helps your offense?
Yeah, you make a great point there, and I really hadn't thought about the defensive background that he had in making this, but I do feel like that he's got to live within his own skin and not be worried about, hey, what would Lane do? And I got to prove that I can do this. I mean, he's been a good coach for a long time and been under some really good coaches, and now he's got his opportunity. But I'm telling you, the first game and the first season and the first big game now is just different as a head coach as compared to assistant. Not only just the game itself, but all the stuff leading up to it, all the stuff he has to do press-wise, talking to the whole team instead of the defense, working on the transfer portal, all the different things that you just take for granted that, the head coach is going to do. He's got to do that now. And his ability to balance that out is going to be important. But the point you made during the game, the tendency is, well, if we go for it and don't make it, I know what Georgia's capable of here on defense as trying to stop them. So I might go ahead and punt here, make it harder on them. But we always knew that Lane just looked at it from my standpoint. I think he looked at the overall team, but man, he was big on going for it, and you couldn't get a real good bite on their stats on third down because they went for it on fourth down so much. I mean, well, they're not great on third down, but look how many times they make it on fourth. So what you got to have against them, like we had in the fourth quarter, some drop passes, some penalties, some tip balls, whatever it might be, just get the stops. And you just can't feel futility about it either. I mean, you got to go in there with some confidence. And I think that, to me, is the difference between the team that played at Georgia 6 or 7 weeks ago and now. And that would be, we were really not very confident defensively. I mean, we were, man, look, find some way to stop them just once, whereas now we're more in attack mode, don't you think?
Yeah, especially on the front. Now, I will say, what happens with Gabe Harris not being in there, because he had probably, in my view, become Georgia's most explosive pass rusher. At least, I don't know, most consistent, but it seemed like if Georgia was going to get a sack, he was going to be somewhere around it. How do you replace that production with him?
Well, he was starting to, like you said, he was starting to make it, get a lot more confident, and he was using more moves and all. But I think we can use maybe Williams, move him out there and put in that Jaguar package. And the only thing about that, you give away what you're in when he goes in, and whereas if you got your regular people, your nickel defense, then you can disguise things a little more. But overall, the one thing that helps your defense too, and helps Ole Miss defense too, is been able to practice against our offense all this time to get ready for the game. I mean, the speed of the game isn't going to be anything you have to catch up with down there because you've gone against a really good team in practice. So it's just a big time matchup. I mean, two really good teams that I think the edge for us is we can run the ball maybe a little more soundly. It's not just based on RPOs, even though their back's great. And our kicking game is just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with theirs. Ours is just out of sight.
Well, and typically these neutral site games, I think Georgia fans always show up and have a big advantage and buy up a lot of the tickets. I suspect this will be about 50-50. I mean, this is one of the biggest games in the history of Ole Miss.
Yeah, you got to feel like, I mean, I remember when I used to go down to Southern Miss and do games, and you'd be getting a fork in the road and you'd see New Orleans 90 miles or whatever, how far it was from Hattiesburg, I'm not sure. But, it's an easy trip for a lot of these people to go to that game. Certainly, you look at it as a lifetime experience going to a bowl game like the Sugar Bowl, but now it's a playoff game on top of that. So there'll be a lot of people there for Ole Miss, but I know Georgia's people show up too.
Yep, they certainly will. And let's get to some questions here from UGASports.com. And then what we'll do, Coach, is I'll wrap the show with just some quick hitters around college football, because while all of this is happening, we've got Clemson changing coordinators. Chip Kelly's back in college football, so we'll get to all of that.
Yeah, we got to talk about Darden's delight.
We do, and but let's get to some questions from UGAsports.com first. This is from Parkus. Says, Coach, at what point in the second half, when you have a lead, do you start to focus on shortening the game in the way that Kirby is famous for doing? Is there a certain number of points ahead, or is it just the other team's inability to do something when you have to make that decision?
Good question, particularly in the playoffs. And I think you got to look at, if you feel like you're comfortably in hand, not only shortening the game, but subbing, because we got to play next week and we got to play with our full complement of players, and to have somebody in there and get hurt in that situation is just not very smart by any of us. So you saw that with Dan Lanning last week. We saw James Madison getting some easy scores against some, I think, third team players that were in there for Oregon, but nothing to take away from James Madison, but smart by Lanning. But I think the first part of the deal was you always feel like an explosive team like Ole Miss is capable of hitting a big play and then an onside kick and all that. But there's nothing real comfortable unless it's like, two score plus situation with like 8-9 minutes to go. And a lot of it tends to be how the game's been played and have they been able to really sting us with a lot of big plays. So, and is your offense capable of milking the clock with some second team players in there? If not, you probably got to go on and milk it with the first team. But that's definitely something that enters your mind. But I think injuries prevention is pretty big there too, as far as what the score is.
Well, and I think what is easy for a lot of people to just see as the next week. Think about the work that these football ops people have to do for the winner of this game, that your whole operation is down in New Orleans, and now you have a week to get everything set up to go to Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
That's a big undertaking.
It really is, and that's something that the magnitude of all involved, the inside of watching our show, for instance, you live in and breathe on your ability to use in the tape, practice tape, the other team's tape. And one of the seats in first class for Georgia's trips is the processor that they put and take with them.
Huh.
They're not going to mess around with something down there. They take their own stuff. And I'm sure I've never heard other teams do it, but they want that baby down there where they can get their stuff and look at it like they normally do, as compared to just counting on a computer or something like that. They got their whole processor down there with them. And they've already broken down all these teams that are in our bracket, that they're ready to go for Ohio State. Or when they come back on the plane, they'll be working on, they already know that it's going to be Ohio State or Miami. So a lot of the guys down there, Thursday during the day, that aren't affiliated with game day operations will be putting all that stuff together, the scouting report, and then the actual the operations of getting out there and everything. Kirby has sent a team to Phoenix already to go over the practice site,
Really?
Everything. So they're ready to go. I mean, they're not going to flip flop around and get back here and then try to get. They know exactly where they're staying. They know exactly where they're practicing. They know when they're going to leave to go out there. He's already mad because Miami's or Ohio State's got a day rest on us. So we're going to have to work that out. But tremendous organizational skills that Kirby has and the planning ahead. But that processor deal just kind of got me at like, hey, we're going to make sure we know and they build a temporary office down there, take secretaries and certainly they deserve it, but they've got a temporary office and a temporary room there where they have all their tape and all. And it's just, you want to make it as natural as possible for sure.
Yeah. So I suppose that one potential advantage in prepping is that by Thursday or by Wednesday night, Georgia coaches and staff that are not a part of game day ops will know if they're preparing for Ohio State or Miami and could have that ready to go as long as Georgia wins against Ole Miss. The downside is it's one less day for players to recover and get ready in comparison.
And the other thing he did, which I thought was brilliant too, the people that are associated with Georgia know that our airport can't handle a larger plane, a charter plane. So, but we do have the ability when we make trips, our teams go on, which we don't take a big staff with us. We just take the football people. So they take two planes, offense and defense. And then, but for this trip, because of the getting back and the recovery, we've gone down there with two planes. So the offense and defense went yesterday out of Athens, and then all the auxiliary people, not to take away from him, but the staff, the athletic staff, the president's office, all those people, the big plane went from Atlanta, and they'll come back from New Orleans after the game on the big plane, but our players will come back and have that extra 4 or 5 hours that they wouldn't have to deal with going to Atlanta and coming back here. So
Another big difference.
Another smart move by Kirby.
Well, there you go. So we have insight into Georgia's plane situation, and I guess you saw that Ole Miss took the Patriots plane down to New Orleans because That's something that they've done with Joe Judge and the relationships that some of those got. Charlie Weiss Jr. with his dad being involved with the Patriots. Robert Kraft sent his plane to get Ole Miss down there.
Well, that's nice of Robert, and he's kind of living on the fact that they're having a great year up there. I mean, Drake May, what a great year he's having. I mean, good Lord, I talked to Doug Marone on text yesterday. He's the O-line coach, just talking about Jared Wilson, what a great year he's had for him.
This question from HugDog18. Coach, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. With college football, specifically the SEC, being a $1 billion business, why is officiating in this league so continually poor and inconsistent? Can you pay the officials more to be better?
Well, it's a thankless job, and we certainly find so many times where they bundle it and not do well. And we won't have SEC officials for this game. I'm not sure what league it'll be from, but Big 10 or ACC or Big 8, Big 12, who knows who they'll be from. But they do a lot of scrutiny, and they coach them, and they go over the tapes, and they have observers and all. And but it's still a very trying situation for all of us, because you hate to everything come down to officials' call. That's for sure.
Let's take a moment and thank our friends at Darden's Delights. So I saw my grandparents down in East Dublin, Coach, over the Christmas break, and my granny is one of the best cooks that I've ever met, but she's not wanting to cook as much anymore because she doesn't want to clean as much anymore after the cooking, and I get all of that. So I thought about trying to get her some of Darden's Delights pies, something very easy that she can throw in the oven, and especially if they want the sweet stuff. But the savory pies are really good too, whether you want the cheeseburger pie, which I've had. I think you had one of those here as well.
Great.
And then just a poppy seed chicken, if that's where you want to go. But if you want to get some, the dangerously delicious fudge pie from Darden's Delights, that's what they're famous for and what they're known for. And anytime that you purchase some of the Darden's Delights pies, like they do a lot of work with children that have developmental disabilities, and that's Darden. Their daughter is one of those. They also have a child at UGA. These are UGA people supporting Georgia people, and so you can support the folks over at Darden's Delights, Betsy Glass, and that whole crew. I hope that they all had a Merry Christmas. And,
and the other thing you can get, give your employees a little New Year's bonus and get them all a pie or something. I think that'd be great.
Question from Omari Carmichael. Let's see.
You had that one question you were going to ask me about my first year.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to that. It's DVD Dog. All right, Coach Donnan, when you started your Georgia career, you had two tough losses, Southern Miss and South Carolina. Do you remember the pressure of what that felt like, or the scrutiny upon reflection? Do you have anything that you would have done differently starting out?
One of the things that you have as a coach, regardless of where you are, you've got the pressure on you every day to perform, and not anymore because we lost, but I will say this, which I've said publicly, and I'll say it to the Bulldog Nation here. I did a terrible job of getting to know my team the first year. That really, one of the best qualities I have as a coach is recognizing a player and figuring out what he can do and putting him in a system and being involved in his day-to-day stuff. I was spending so much time raising money and trying to build a weight room and going out to these Bulldog clubs, which is part of the job. You got to be the coach, but not saying no, go and speak at the Rotary Club, whatever it might be. I was trying to promote our program and, speaking at clinics and all that, but I needed more time with the players, bring them in the office. And so we didn't know our players good enough early on. We were playing some guys that weren't as good as guys that were on the bench. And as you saw our team at the end of the year, we got screwed by Ole Miss, bad call, but we were really peaking at the end of the year because we were doing better with our players. We had the better guys that understood. So I would say anybody that takes a new job in coaching, you got to be a promoter and build your facilities and all that, but you got to get to know your team. And I talked to Kirby about that when he got here, because he was undergoing the deal about trying to get a new facility here, an indoor, and going out to the speaking and all. But he did a really good job of getting to know the players and also the parents, because the parents of the team are so important because they can help you because they know what makes the kids tick. So boo on me, give me an F on that. And that cost me my first year. I did a terrible job on that. But I do feel like within the restraints that we had, facility wise, being on probation, all the things, Florida and Tennessee at their negative, that we started to get things a lot better as we got our team ready. And then over the next 3 years, we won a lot of games. We didn't do that great the last year after the injury to Quincy, but I'm just telling you, that was a bad mistake by the old coach.
I want to end the show here. We have about 3 minutes left. Quickly getting some things that happen around college football that aren't playoff related. Clemson fires its offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley. I listen to some Clemson radio. I do a weekly hit at a station over there just to hear some of the names that they were throwing out there. And it's all over the board, Coach, thinking that they could get Todd Monken from the Ravens, or maybe it's Chad Morris, who's been out of coaching for a year. They are Clemson is trying to find a new identity.
Please get Chad back. I think he's a good coach, but not great in the big games. But I think Todd has made it clear he wants to coach in pro football, and Dabo's just got tremendous respect from me from what he's done career wise. But one of the things you got to do is adjust, and you just can't say, well, we've always done it like this. They got to get in the portal. I mean, where are they going to get some players? I mean, it's pretty obvious when Penn State had 33 opt-outs and they couldn't hardly make a first down.
Yeah.
They got to do something to get their offense going. I don't know that Riley's the whole fault or what might be, and it's not my job to critique Clemson, but I'm not worried too much about Clemson because that's not in our league, but they do recruit against us. So I'm hoping that Dabo can get it going again. He's a good guy. He does a lot for the community and he does a lot for the players, but a wise man changes and a fool never does.
Chip Kelly's a name that may get floated out there, though he just accepted the Northwestern offensive coordinator job. Doesn't mean he couldn't take another job and leave that, but that was surprising to me that he would maybe wants to live in Chicago.
One thing about Chip Kelly, he's a lifer, man. He loves football. I mean, he'd be down here right now drawing up plays if we were outside at the pool or something. He'd be drawing plays. He just loves football. And it'll be a challenge for him. I thought Northwestern, of course, they didn't have a very tough game against Central Michigan, but they've had a tough situation there over all that stuff that happened with Pat Fitzgerald. I'm glad he was exonerated. A really good guy. But I don't know what the answer is for going forward for Clemson, but we'll see. And then South Carolina's brought in the Browse, who was at TCU and Arkansas before that, and runs a very simple spread attack. But we'll see how they're able to function here with that kind of change.
And if I would have told you 2 years ago, Michigan wins the national championship, but in 2 years their head coach will be Kyle Whittingham, you wouldn't have believed me.
Yeah, I wouldn't really. Kyle Whittingham is a tremendous guy. I mean, besides being a good, solid coach, just reminds you a lot of Irk Russell type. Just old ball coach. I don't know. He has quite the fire nobody did that Irk did, but nobody does that Irk did. But he's just. I met him when I was out at doing the Utah BYU game on national TV. The last game that Urban coached out there, and watched him coach in practice. He was a defensive coordinator, and then did a couple of his bowl games when I was at ESPN. Just a very solid coach. And at this situation at Michigan with all the upheaval and everything, I just think he gives a tremendous amount of stability. I really don't know that he has any clue what he's getting into with, where he's always lived in Utah, went to BYU, coached at Utah. It's going to be a different ball game going against the people he's got to recruit against, but he's definitely got the resources there at Michigan. I mean, they got all the things and the facilities. It's one of the jobs in the country, no question about it. And 66 years old, I mean, he's going to do it. But I will say this about football. I'm almost 81 years old, and I miss it every day. Going out there, getting between the stripes, coaching ball, teaching it, getting a game plan. I enjoyed the recruiting. I enjoyed everything about it. And contrary to what some people say, I did enjoy meeting the Georgia people and all. I just wasn't very patient with some people that asked me some stupid questions. I should have done better, but I would say the most of you that know me know that I'm pretty genuine, and I did enjoy being around. I mean, that's a misnomer about me. That's all I'm going to talk about. But football wise, I mean, it's just a game that it just engulfs you. And being around me, I don't want to talk about how much I know or don't know or anything like that. But just a chess match, a calling the game, or being in your hotel room the night before the Nebraska game, and hey, can we make a yard? Thinking about that, or riding on the bus to the Georgia Florida game and going across that bridge, or just those little things. And then the best thing though is being in a locker room after a big win, whether it's national championship or beating your rival, or just the be totally engulfed with the emotion of everybody's laid it out on the line. And y'all, excuse me for getting too involved there, but that's just the way it is about football. If it's part of you, it's hard to get out of your system. So I just, and that's part of the reason I do this. Hopefully, share some ideas and some thoughts about what's going on. And I'm just a big Kirby and Mike Bobo and all those guys that played for me, and I'm just so happy. And I'm happy for Will Muschamp too, that even though he's going to Texas, because he's that same kind of guy. He loves the thrill of competing.
Well, one of the coolest moments this year for me personally in working with you, Coach, Georgia plays Marshall. And the night before, I'm over here, and some of your national champions from Marshall come to hang out with you at your house. And I got to see that connection that remains there from, I mean, this is from the 90s when that occurred. And it's like it never went away. And all the stories came back, all the connection, all the meaningful things that happen on a football team that gels together.
Yeah, that's nice of you to say, and you can't make that stuff up. And then I was just gutted not being able to go out to that '85 reunion that Oklahoma had for our national championship team, and not being able to be out there Christmas with my family. But I'm making some progress, and it's just you got to measure your health in degrees, and my immune system is starting to get a little better. So hopefully I'll be able to travel a little more. But I did have one joke here to finish up here that I think you'll like. These 4 guys were talking about that they wanted to play golf the day after Christmas, but they were worried about their wives wouldn't let them go. But so they said, okay, we'll just meet out here on the 26th, and whoever shows up, shows up. So they get out there, and all 4 of them are there, and they said, God, this is unbelievable. He said, what happened with you? He said, well, I told my wife if she let me play golf, we'd go on a cruise. And she said, okay. And the second one said, well, I told my wife that I was going to get her a new car. And she said, okay, you can play. And the third one said, well, I told my wife that she wanted to do that spa treatment over there at the Athens spa. And she said, okay, you can go. And looked at the other guy, and he said, how about you? He said, well, I woke up this morning and looked at my wife, and I said, intercourse or golf course? He said, here's your hat. Here's your hat.
All right, we'll see if we're in a joking mood in 2 days when Georgia plays Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Coach and I will be here for the UGASports Watch Along show. Beyond Creative in the chat says, my day is complete now, with a Donnan joke.
Yeah, and that was a good one from my standpoint. But also want to give my man Dane credit here, putting all this together. He does it flawlessly all the time, but he came up with the idea that we'd do this one down here. But a lot of good prep, and you see the magnitude without Roddy on here, how much that Dane actually knows. And of course it's Roddy's show, and it should be, but I really am excited about the fans getting to see Dane, and not just being back there running the computers, because you do a really good job, and do a good job of coming up with the stats and doing all that stuff. And just fortunate to have you. And he does so much for me in my personal life too. So appreciate you, Dane.
I appreciate you too, Coach. And my final shout out, I mentioned my Granny Young. Today is my Granny Carter's birthday down in Cary, Georgia, outside of Cochran. So that's a Marius Mims territory a little bit.
I didn't know they had a Cary, Georgia. I know they had a Cary, North Carolina.
Well, it's kind of pronounced Cary,
How you, C-A-R-Y?
C-A-R-Y, but they kind of say Cary down there. It's in between Cochran and Warner Robins down in that area.
Yeah, that joke that NC State back in the days, this kid was trying to get eligible, and the coach said, "Look, you got to get him. We got to play North Carolina this week. You got to get him eligible." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Bring him in here." And he said, "Okay, Charlie." So I'm going to give you one test question here on geography. What is the state capital of North Carolina? And the kid's thinking, and he's thinking. He said, "I think it's Cary." He said, "Well, that's okay. It's 15 miles from Raleigh, 85. You make 85.
All right. We will see y'all for the watch along show with Jim Donnan. Late night. So let's get a nap in, Coach. And we'll be here for it for Georgia.
Yeah,
and
tell
Ole
your
Miss.
friends that aren't, explain it to them that the ones that don't understand it. People ask me how you do it, but just maybe give them a real quick critique on, or not critique on, tell them how to get to watch it.
You'll pull us up on your second screen. YouTube is what I suggest. Maybe you use Facebook, or if you use X, that's fine. But essentially, you'll pull that up on your phone or your laptop or your iPad. And then on your main TV screen, you have the broadcast of Georgia and Ole Miss. And just depending on how you're watching, you may have to pause the YouTube stream, or you may have to pause your satellite or your cable or your streaming of YouTube TV or whatever it is where you're watching Georgia. But then you get that synced up, and then you watch it for the rest of the game, and you get Georgia-centric commentary, and then maybe some jokes snuck in there too.
Yeah, we'll have this game broken down to the max, and watch this. If here's a little challenge: if everybody would just pick out 2 people they could email or text or call and tell them about that, just as a favor to old coach, and see if we can get. We had over 250,000 for the Florida game, and I'm sure we won't have that with this one, but if we could hit 100,000, that'd be great. That's good for my morale.
All right, well, let's get the morale up. Georgia and Ole Miss in 2 days. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all next time here on UGA.